his gaze fall on Pelham, irritated despite himself at the man's obvious sarcasm. "What time is it, anyway, you old possum?" He'd stopped wearing his wristwatch long ago. Watches and clocks were an anachronism, he had informed his friend Ambrose when Congreve had chided him for his habitual tardiness. The criticism fell on deaf ears. 9 times out of 10, what's the bloody point of knowing the time, anyway? It's not like you're going to miss something terribly worthwhile. He'd come to a conclusion. Nothing ever happens. Pelham said, "I'm just going on 12 noon, sir." Hawke jammed the cigarette into the corner of his mouth and raised his arms above his head, yawning loudly and deeply. "Oh, well, yes, the crack of noon. Nothing makes a man feel more in the pink than to be up and about when the blazing sun has fully risen in the azure sky. Wouldn't you agree, young Pelham?" "Indeed, sir," the old fellow said, turning his face away so Hawke couldn't see the pained look in his eyes. Pelham Grenville, like his father and grandfather before him, had been in service to the Hawke family all his life. He had practically raised young Alex after the tragic murder of his parents at the hands of drug pirates in the Caribbean when the boy was but 7. "Besides," Hawke said, "I've a doctor's appointment on for this afternoon. There's a treat. Get the eagerly anticipated results of my recent physical. One's health is almost a good enough reason to get out of bed, I suppose. Wouldn't you agree?" "What time is your appointment, sir?" "At 2 o'clock, or thereabouts," he said, waving his cigarette in an airily vague manner. "Your friend, former Chief Inspector Congreve, will be taking you to hospital, one hopes?" "Congreve? No, don't be ridiculous, Pelham. No need to bother Ambrose. I don't need a Scotland Yard escort. I'm perfectly capable of getting over to King Edward's and back under my own steam. I'll take my motorcycle." Pelham winced. It had been raining early that morning. The roads were still slippery. The antique Norton motorcycle had become a sore subject between them. His lordship had been arrested at least 3 times for speeding, somehow charming his way out of being charged while driving under the influence on each occasion. Pelham said, "I'd be glad to take you around in the Jolly, sir. There's more rain in the forecast. A Jolly might be preferable to a motorcycle jaunt on those slick roads." "The Jolly? You must be mad." The bright yellow Jolly was a tiny Fiat 600, no doors, sporting a striped and fringed canvas roof. It was the circus car, once well loved by Lord Hawke. It no longer seemed to suit his ever-shifting moods. "Pelham, please, do try not to be such a fusty old nanny. That motorcycle of mine is one of the very few things I enjoy anymore. I damned well will take my motorcycle, and that's the end of it." "Indeed, sir," Pelham said, turning away. Fusty old nanny, indeed. He was wholly unaccustomed to insult, and although he knew Hawke never really meant to offend, such comments still stung. "You know what I'd especially like on a splendid morning like this?" "No, sir," Pelham said, not at all sure he wanted to find out. At one time it might have ranged from a simple pitcher of Bombay Sapphire martinis to flying in a chorus line of Las Vegas showgirls for the weekend. One hardly knew what to make of things any longer. But a grey pall of sadness and despair had settled over Teakettle Cottage, and Pelham was not at all sure how much more of it he could withstand. "A nice frosty daiquiri, Pelham, made with those lovely bananas. Gave me the idea just seeing that splendid bushel of yours, cut fresh from the grove." "I intended to make banana bread, sir." "Well, you've got more than enough for both, I should think. Throw a couple in the blender, will you, and whip up something frothy to get my juices flowing. The old eye-opener, as your famous literary relative's character Bertram Wooster used to say. By the way, what time did I get home last night? Any idea at all?" "None, sir." "He strikes again, does he not?" "Who strikes, sir?" "The midnight kamikaze, isn't that what you called me the other night? Misplaced my keys, so I climbed in through the kitchen window, as I recall." "Such colourful phraseology is well beyond the limits of my verbal palate, sir, but perhaps if the shoe fits." Pelham ducked behind the monkey wood bar and started making the daiquiri. His lordship, much heartened, smiled at the all-too-familiar whir of the antique-wearing blender. Tempted as he was, Pelham knew better than to try to fudge on the silver jigger of Gosling's rum. His lordship would notice, then fall into one of his black moods, thinking everyone, even Pelham, was out to deprive or deceive him in some fashion. The black dog, Hawke's euphemism for his periodic bouts of depression, was back, and the once cheerful little bungalow was now the snarling canine's fiercely guarded turf. Mistrust